Ta-da! Welcome to the May version of the Wedding Couple Support Chat. We have an amazing bunch of panelists, experts in their own right, amazing, that have studied all the bylaws from here to Alaska, and they know their stuff as much as we can know our stuff as far as the government's concerned. So we were thinking of delaying this chat because there was a rumor that there might be some kind of big announcement from the Ontario government tomorrow. I was on the phone for several hours yesterday with different sources, making sure that that was indeed a rumor, and in fact it was. Um, talked to the government, not only the government, but the CFIB and a bunch of other places. And I know a few of the other vendors talked to various other sources too. So I would be completely shocked if there was an announcement of any sort tomorrow. So what we have here is what we have here. It's to our understanding, to our, again, caveat, to our best ability to answer as many of your questions as possible. But I can tell you that with their heart and soul, these vendor experts have gone through every single by line to for you to make sure that that they are informed as possible, to make sure that you can make sure that you have the wedding that you want and relieve any stress that you might have. Do we have maybe every single answer? Absolutely not. Do we have the answers that maybe you want to hear? Maybe not. Um, However, we're gonna answer as best we can and as clear as we can, and we don't want to make sure that we lead you astray in any sort of way. So there you go. I did have one MPP. I'm at the Terrence Kernahan office answered. So I just kind of want to let you know how confused the government is. Now, of course, this is the NDP talking about the provincial Tory government, but I'll just highlight a couple of lines, which is one of them was the guidelines regarding gatherings are in a constant state of flux, are they not? And the government has not provided a clear roadmap. True. What we do know is that currently outdoor wedding gatherings are permitted up to 10 people, ceremonies and receptions, whereas other outdoor gatherings are limited to 5 people. In terms of venues, there is a considerable lack of clarity as weddings can take many forms. So there you go. If the MPP doesn't know what's going on, please do not expect us to be totally understanding the rules as well. So there you go. So I'm going to basically, and I will let you know, no question is a silly question. Let them fly. We have the lovely Erica, our chat girl, who's monitoring the chat room to see if you have any questions. Let them fly. We'll answer them as we go. We don't really have a particular format. It's pretty much open, but I am going to kind of ask questions to our expert panelists as if I was a wedding couple. And I am also going to keep monitoring the waiting room to make sure everybody gets joined in, because there's some latecomers as well. All right. So I will, once you, if you're an expert panelist, please just first time around, just say, hi, I'm Jess from Caradoc Sands, and then answer your question. So just so everybody knows. And there we go. So we'll talk about what's happening right now. So what's happening right now, if I was a wedding couple from now till June 14th, when the first phase is hopefully coming in. Now, again, these are all not written in stone, but hopefully on June 14th, phase 1 or step 1 comes into play. If I was a wedding couple right now planning on, let's call it June 9th to have a wedding, what am I looking at? What am I looking at for numbers, first of all?
So I'll take this one. I'm Jess from Caradoc Sands, as Rob already introduced me. So currently right now, you can have a 10-person ceremony, regardless of if it's inside or outside. That is very clearly stated in this current roadmap that we're working off of. And then under gatherings, it does say that you're allowed 5 people for an outdoor gathering, so no indoor gatherings of any sort. But when it comes to a venue, technically we aren't allowed to host any receptions as of what we've been told from all of the other places. So we can currently have a gathering of 5 people. We've been told both directions that if you are at a staff venue that you either follow that rule or the other rule. But at this point, ceremonies, you can definitely have up to 10 people at a ceremony. And from my understanding, now everyone can correct me if I'm wrong, that includes your vendors, the 10 people as of right now. And I do know that Stop the Spread and the London Middlesex Health Unit have told me once we enter the stages that your vendors are not included, regardless of where you are.
Excellent. As a wedding couple, would I expect food?
I wouldn't, considering that we aren't really allowed to have a gathering. Like you can have 5 people at an outdoor gathering. At this point, my understanding is on private property, but for the most part, if your vendors are included in those numbers of 10, having food is going to up those numbers, then you're having less of your actual guests.
Under the current restrictions, you are not allowed to do any in-person dining at any facility. It's takeout only.
Okay, so anybody else want to add anything to that?
I could get myself unmuted. Hi, Amy from Unmistakably You. I just wanted to highlight, Jess mentioned it, but there is no longer a distinction being made between a staffed and an unstaffed venue to anyone's knowledge. So that was something that was a big issue last summer and resulted in a lot of couples moving to staffed venues. And unfortunately, it does not actually change the restrictions currently anymore.
Perfect. All right. Sorry, just letting a couple more people in. All right. Having said that, we are properly vaccinated. I'm not sure exactly the 60%, I think, is the official number of people vaccinated for the first time in Ontario. So that's happened, right? Because we're all thinking positive. And then we go into phase 1 of this opening. So this is June 14th that this happens. What now am I looking at for, first of all, a ceremony? Indoors and outdoors.
So as of right now, for ceremonies under stage 1, the 10 people indoors stays the same. However, your outdoor is now permitted to capacity limits that permit to 2 meters of physical distancing between guests. So it kind of just depends on where your ceremony is, and if you can give everybody their own little box that is 6 meters of, or 2 feet. Sorry, whoa, I'm getting my dimensions all messed up. 2 meters apart from each other guest. Now, I'm not sure if that means that like families who are technically in their bubbles, even though bubbles don't exist, if they can stay together, which I would assume they can because they're already within each other's airspace all the time. But everyone has to be physical distance at least 2 meters.
Right. And if two people, if you kind of laid on the ground, that would be about a person and a half. Right.
6 feet is a lot further than you actually realize it is.
Yeah. Well, is it 2 meters, right? Because 2 meters is
2
technically
meters is technically longer.
or 8 feet. Thinking in my old school metric conversion.
My favorite guideline is always if you can reach out your arms like this as wide as you can and touch the other person who's doing the same thing, then that's not 6 feet anymore.
All right, we're going to go to Erica, our chat room girl. And
We do have some questions, yeah.
okay.
It said, Jess, you mentioned vendors would later not be included in the numbers once we're officially in the stages. Is that correct?
That is both what I got from the London Middlesex Health Unit officer that I talked to and the Stop the Spread monitor that I talked to. Both said once we are in the stages, which is at the earliest, the 14th of June, your vendors are no longer included in your numbers of whatever stage we are in. So that is the one thing that I've gotten that we are all on the same page with, is that your vendors are not included.
Okay.
Excellent.
This is you kind of touched on it. So if we get to 60% vaccinated sooner than June 14th, would they start phases sooner?
They said in the announcement last Thursday that the earliest we will be starting stage 1 was June 14th. Meaning that even if we reach the 60% vaccination rates or whatever other metric that we have to file into, we will still not be starting until June 14th, because they want to make sure after May 2-4 especially, because there are definitely people who are not following the guidelines, are able to be tested and all of that.
So that's the graphic that we received from the government, talking about doses on the different phases.
Okay, we do have another just little question, easy peasy one. Are the photographer and officiant considered vendors?
Yes.
Yes.
100%. And that's only once we start into stage 1. I keep saying phase, but stage 1, that's when they start becoming not a part of your numbers. Currently, if you were to get married tomorrow, they would count in your numbers.
Okay, here's one that gets kind of complicated because I know we've debated this a little bit. Well, whenever you guys share my screen or share your screen, my chat disappears. I have to do it.
Oh,
Are most wedding venues able to operate an outdoor patio like a restaurant patio with 4 people per table with distancing? Or does the 10-person gathering limit apply, assuming we call it a dinner and not a reception?
Kate, this is your question.
Yes. So, I'm Kate from Oakwood. You can operate under the restaurant guidelines, but that means you lose any aspect of a reception. So no dancing, no speeches, no mingling, cocktail hour, any of those things. It is a dinner and then you leave. So while it can be done, it is different and there's ways to make it still great. I'm sure we did it last year. But there is a distinction between a restaurant meal and a reception.
And I think it might be worth mentioning that it also depends on the restaurant or venue, because some of them are going to very much have their policies in place as to what constitutes what.
Yeah, absolutely. I know at Oakwood, we have our terrace patio that's operating as a breakfast restaurant this year with outdoor dining. So we're able to carry that through the day. But if your venue isn't a restaurant, or if you're getting married at a small restaurant and they don't have the capacity for that, then you wouldn't have that ability.
Okay, we have another good one. Are photographers allowed in stage 1 or 2? There's mixed messages about this. I thought I saw Aaron here.
Aaron, you want to pipe in here?
On here somewhere.
She did disappear for a second.
Oh, you're kidding.
You have to come back to.
Okay,
Yeah.
She'll be back in a second, I'm sure. Oh, well, yeah. I see your square, but she's not in it. So when we get to stages, does this mean that dancing is now permitted?
I think what Kate meant was that essentially if you start going under a dinner at a restaurant, you don't get your first dance and your parent dances. And any of the dances that we have been allowing at this point, they haven't said anything about dancing. They've only ever mentioned karaoke. That being said, this is a very bare bones structure that we are currently working off of. I'm sure closer to the 14th, we will get a longer list of do's and don'ts. But at this point, we are assuming that dancing is not permitted in any of the stages until at least stage 3, if not after that. So I think what Kate was saying that is if you were to call it a dinner instead of a reception and do it at a restaurant with restaurant rules, you are negating anything that qualifies a reception wedding, like your dancing, your dinner, or your speeches, your cake cutting, all of those things that you would typically like to do at your reception, you would not be doing in a restaurant setting.
And I do want to clarify that we have 0 guidelines at this point for meeting and event spaces and very minimal guidelines for restaurant spaces. So until we have more details, it really is up to what is coming at that time. So if we had to plan for a reception right now that's happening in stage 2, then we would only be able to plan it as a restaurant meal because we don't have any guidelines for meetings and events.
Another thing for a restaurant is it'd be decor as well. So you wouldn't have your wedding decor for your table settings depending on your venue, but that doesn't really fall in the restaurant spot. So any of your table numbers, centerpieces, all that stuff as well.
Now, Anne or Amy can answer this question because I believe somewhere in your research, there's more information coming a little bit closer to the June 14th marker.
I have nothing on that from anyone I've spoken to.
Okay.
I have very confusing and conflicting information from Peggy Sattler's office and the exact same information you have from Terrence Kernahan, Rob. So,
Okay. Anne?
Honestly, I would say at this point, there is, the only information we have is that there is information. By the time we're ready to open into stage 1 or step 1, I guess they're calling it, I anticipate that there will be a whole list of rules. I believe currently in step 2, there is no allocation for meeting and event spaces indoors, is there? Can you?
Not for indoors, only for outdoors.
Only for outdoors. So we're really not looking at indoor receptions until stage 3 as it's currently written, which is potentially the end of July. Anything else is outside. Your ceremony, once we're into the steps, can be just about as big as you want it to be as long as you've got space. And then your numbers are restricted to, I believe it's 10. I'm sorry, for a reception outdoors, is it 10 in step 1 and then 25 in step 2?
So for meeting and event spaces, there's nothing. Step 2 is 25% outside, where under gatherings, it's a maximum of 10 people in stage 1 and up to 25 in stage 2.
Right. Okay. And honestly, your reception would just be considered a gathering. So outside in step 1, you could have 10 people, and outside in step 2, you could have 25 people, but there is no indoor provision until step 3 currently. Honestly, at this point, like I love that everybody showed up for a meeting because you're just as confused as we are, but there really is, this is the information about no information. Like there's nothing out there. The government has not clarified anything for us despite repeated requests from all kinds of fronts.
Including us.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Everybody on this call that is a vendor has reached out to their local MP and their MPP. We have associations and groups here all across Ontario who have been working diligently to try and get some kind of answer. And my understanding is that there's nothing but a runaround. Public health is saying you have to talk to the government, and the government is saying you have to talk to public health. At some point, we hope they talk to each other.
Again, reminding people that we're here for you. We don't want to fill you with hopium. We're giving you the information that we have, and we don't want to lead you down a garden path to say everything's going to be, rosy. But at the same time, we don't want to be negative either, right? We, as much as all our lovely wedding couples, want to get back to celebrating and being part of something more social. So, absolutely. Can we, because we talked about this before, gatherings versus events, right? Because there's 2 different categories within the legislation.
yeah, that's really the crux of the issue the biggest issue I have is that there's no clear distinction between what a wedding reception is. So from Peggy Sattler's office, I have wedding receptions are subject to the same restrictions as other gatherings. A wedding in a meeting and event space would have to meet all the requirements of both. For example, it looks like an outdoor wedding at an event space during step 2 will have to have a maximum of 25 people and be limited to 25% of the venue's capacity. So even if your venue has a capacity over 100, it sounds like their interpretation is you would have to keep your numbers to 25. But.
And irregardless, for Kate and Jody, who are our officiants in the house, I don't think there's really, it doesn't really affect you can do a wedding now ceremony just as much as you can in phase 3. There's no real
Mhm.
change.
Mhm.
The
Except for-
biggest changes are for your reception. Your ceremonies can still happen in some capacity regardless of what stage.
indoors or outdoors. Erica.
Oh, I just wanted to circle back to Erin is here now, and we had a photographer question. Are photographers allowed in stage 1 or 2? There's mixed messages about this.
So from we received information today that our health unit is allowing photographers to work now, so long as we're within the gathering limit, so outside. So right now we can do up to 5 people, so including us. Most photographers that I know in the area are going ahead with if they're included in the 10 people or less right now. We have had again, mixed messages from, the Stop the Spread and whatever else about that. But I think for the most part, everyone is just going ahead with that now. And then, with what we were saying earlier about once we get to the stages, then we will not have to be included in the limit, I guess. So, yeah.
We heard some news today, Erin?
So from the health unit, they said that we can, do photography as long as we're within the 5, within the gathering limit. So which right now is 5, and then stage 1, I believe, is 10, and then 25. So and with photography, I mean, we can still be there right from the beginning through to getting all the reception shots once we can have receptions. So we will be able to still capture all those moments. So don't fret that you're going to be having a limited amount of photographs. You'll still be able to have
Perfect. All right, so to recap phase 1, if I'm getting married, let's call it June 26th. As a recap, what is my wedding looking like?
Honestly, we don't know because we don't know what phase we'll be in.
If we are in phase 1, what is my wedding looking like?
If we're in phase 1,
As a recap, we just kind of redo ceremony and reception. So reception, I'm assuming no, right? It's not looking good.
It depends on if you're getting married at a venue or a private gathering.
But smaller.
Yeah, it's going to be small for sure. I think it really depends on where you're getting married and what the abilities are. If you're getting married in your backyard, you have 5 people as your gathering. If you're getting married at a venue with a restaurant, maybe you have a meal. But it's a kind of a case-by-case basis.
Right, and not that the officiants, or sorry, not that the venue people want to hear this, but as much as the last time around, it kind of switched in favor of the venues versus private residences, it's actually now flipped back. So that it's actually more advantageous to have it on a family farm, family home.
Yeah, we do have that question. So has anything been mentioned on private property functions? I'm not sure I've seen anything. And I think really, like, from what I've noticed in our discussions, it basically for the 5-person gathering, that's the only difference for receptions, if I understand that correctly.
Right.
For receptions, your gathering, you can have 5 people in your backyard.
To the letter of the law.
Yes.
Right.
Which we are encouraging people to follow the law.
Yes. Absolutely. Did I say anything else different?
What would a park be considered?
Good question.
I don't know that it matters at this point because
I
they
don't think it
haven't
does.
differentiated between public and private or staffed venue and a private event. So the numbers are the same regardless of whether you have it in a park, in your backyard, in your local church, or in Oakwood Inn or any of the other beautiful venues that you can find. So there's no difference based on location. And even from a ceremony perspective, if you have your ceremony in a park, there's still no difference than if you have your ceremony in your church parking lot. And somebody who's better on these numbers, I think it's still a capacity base. It's physical distancing and percentage inside the building. Is that correct? If you're getting married inside a church?
Once we're in stage 2, it's 15% of the overall capacity inside. Or sorry, stage 2. Stage 2.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
We've got one here for, I think Kurt's our go-to on this one. Is there any update on tailoring services? I've heard someplace are doing curbside tailoring.
We are doing curbside tailoring. We've done a couple wedding gowns for brides that needed an emergency. We've done suits, obviously. So I haven't read anything that says we're not allowed to do it. It is curbside service. We're doing it outside with all the safety gear on. So some of our guys are bringing their suits pinned, and we can obviously just grab it and take it and tailor it and bring it back out. We had a bride the other day show up in her gown from her car, and our tailor went out and pinned it, and we're sewing it now. So we can still help with that if you need.
That is amazing. I have seen so many brides like panicking in the groups lately. Like, what about my dress? So that's amazing that you're doing that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just that's a happy for me. Sorry.
It is awesome.
Well, I can't say I'm doing it. My seamstresses are awesome. I'm just facilitating it. They're doing the work.
Excellent. Go ahead,
Sorry.
Eric.
Oh, I was going to say, is there any guidance regarding curfews for events in the stages, specifically stage 2?
So like I said earlier, these guidelines that we are going off of are very bare bones and are not the full set of guidelines. So they have not given us anything in regards to dancing, in regards to live music being played, in regards to curfew when the bar is closing. They have given us nothing at this point. When I talked to the London Middlesex Health Unit on Tuesday, she said that they know that they will be receiving more information about this, like the week of or the week before we go into stage 1, so around the June 14th mark, that they will be getting more information, and she would assume that it would also be going out to the public as well. So we're hoping for more information come June 14th. But at this point, we have no details other than the like bare bones capacity limits. That's all we have right now.
Okay, here's an interesting one. If our officiant is a pastor from our church, would he have to be paid in order to be counted as a vendor once we are in the steps?
No, he's still performing a service.
Yeah, once we're into the steps, any of your vendors are considered staff. They're not considered part of your numbers. Photographer, videographer.
Anyone supplying the service.
Yeah, sorry.
And I mean, in considering the fact that if there were a fine being laid, it would be at the discretion of the bylaw officer who shows up, who has not been sitting in on these meetings every month for the past year and a half, who, unless they've gotten married in the past year, probably have no sense of this whole distinction between vendors and guests and who is what. And so if someone were to show up and say, you're over the limits, you say, no, these are my vendors. They're not counted in the limits. We've been told that by several sources, and they're not going to know enough to say, well, is he being paid? Is she being paid? Like, I think that we are far more intimately involved and care more about these specifics than a bylaw officer would, just in terms of general education and being immersed in the industry.
Yeah.
Okay, another good one. Isn't a gathering 10 people in stage 1, not 5?
Yes, and that was just because it's a 4-stage, 3-stage program, and we're getting very confused with what we're doing currently and what stage 1 is. Because in our minds, stage 1 is now, and stage 2 is actually stage 1. So we apologize. It's just the fact that it doesn't make a lot of sense.
We have a "You are awesome," Kurt. I just thought I'd share that. Is the fine the same for a gathering, still $10,000. I haven't seen anything about the fines.
I haven't heard anything
Does
different.
anybody?
No.
No, but the government's going to find a way to make money, so I'm assuming there still will be fines.
I'm assuming there will still be fines, but we haven't heard if it's decreasing or increasing in any value or anything other than I would just assume that it's still a thing.
Jody,
Can I pop in here for a sec? Yeah,
we
thanks,
have your
Robbie.
hand
Sorry. I do. But I appreciate Erica. I might not have been on your screen. Hello, everyone. I'm Jody from Something New Officiant, and I've been eloping my way through this entire gray place that we find ourselves in, and so have some considerations. I won't list them off all verbally, but one of the big ones as we're unfolding this conversation is that it's important to remember that different municipalities are also enacting different ways that they're enforcing. So for instance, I had an elopement that was planned at one of the national parks. And we were all set to go because there was an assumption made that because people were allowed to go into the park, that we would be allowed to go into the park. But that's not the case because there's a stay-at-home order. They do not want people outside of that municipality traveling into tourist locations to want to have an elopement because they're at threshold within their community in terms of their capacity to do contact tracing. And so had we gone, we were given the heads up that OPP were ticketing people that were out of that municipality by running their plates, and they were parked in the municipal parking lots. And so it would be very easy to see that we were out of town and would be ticketed. It's an $800 ticket that they were enforcing. And so again, when we're considering what we can get away with, you're going to have to also check in with where you're traveling into, particularly during this phase right now as we're waiting for stage 1 to be unfolded, hopefully with more detail.
awesome. And I believe somebody asked about, is there going to be another meeting later on? Yes, there will be. I suspect probably, and we'll maybe decide this later, but probably the 23rd, maybe something along those lines.
Sorry, Rob.
Yep.
Hi, Riley here, just your little creeper without a camera. Can I say something about the fines? Because I was curious about this last night too. Just because we're going to be on private property.
Fire away.
So I couldn't really find anything that was too solid, but I did find something that said, those who host parties or gatherings in violation of the regulations can face a maximum fine of $10,000. So that's pretty much all I could really find. And then the total maximum penalty for an individual is $100,000 and up to 1 year in jail.
Yeah, that's what the fines were before this too. They're also during the stay-at-home order, it is an $880 fine for traveling outside of your area. So you got to be aware of both. You could get hit on both sides.
Yeah, we're not going to be kind of using our soapbox to say, oh, you'll just get a warning. We don't know, right? Depends on the enforcer.
Who gets you?
Yeah, whoever gets you, might be he or she might be in a grumpy mood. Maybe not. So
I think it is also important to mention that while we are reading the rules and we're reading them how we interpret them, the person coming to give the fine, it is how they interpret the rules. So if I interpret it to think, oh, it doesn't include vendors, but they interpret it that it does, it's their word against ours, and they're the ones with the pad of paper. So it is, you have to think as if you would be the person giving the fine.
Excellent.
And not with those.
And I don't know. Sorry, Jess, I cut you off. I don't know if anyone has had to stay also at a hotel during during the stay-at-home order, but you are required to declare that it is essential that you stay at that accommodation. So and again, we were going to be caught at that end because we all would have needed to stay the night before. So I could argue that while I'm providing an essential service, I would be protected because I was doing business, but it wouldn't mean that my couple was protected. And so that because they were staying over and they would have declared that it was essential, in the accommodation realm, you wouldn't be. So again, thinking about guests during a stay-at-home order being pulled into the community if they're traveling, that might also be very precarious. So hopefully in stage 1, we're not worrying about that, but there may be still some travel restrictions. We're just not clear.
Yeah, and I will just say, because you might be there listening to us wading through these rules that we don't are so super vague, and you're going like, this is not answering my question. Understand that we are doing this to give you information, but in the main thing is it's a support chat, which simply means I'm confused, but I thought I was alone being confused, but now, oh no, there's a whole bunch of other people that are confused, and now I feel support. And like Brianna and Riley, they become friends, and they can kind of be confused together. So that's a lot of part of what why this group was started it was because of the support thing. It wasn't necessarily that we have more information than anybody else. It's really that we're not alone in this. We're together in this, not only together in this as vendors, but vendors and our wedding couples, that we can move forward and feel like we can support each other and be in this together. So that's my, and I would hate for you to say, well, I'm not getting a lot out of this. The main thing that I would hope that you get out of this is I'm not alone. I am definitely part of something, and that I do have some support. And we're definitely, especially the vendors here, have big hearts and definitely have all sorts of love for you guys, and will want the best for you. Couple of things before we go to the next phase. One is that if you came in late, this meeting is being recorded and will be on the Music Central YouTube channel, probably as of tomorrow. Plus, there'll be a link to on the Music Central June newsletter. So if you have missed part of like the first 20 minutes or something, don't worry. We'll be putting it on the YouTube channel. All right, so everything's going well. Everybody's getting vaccinated like good boys and girls. And we go into, as of July 5th, phase 2. I know we touched on this, but if we could maybe just briefly recap what happens in phase 2 versus phase 1, and understand that there is 21-day difference, and that's a minimum 21 days. They've said, oh no, if everything's going really well, maybe we'll do like 18 days. No. It's going to, what we see here is best case scenario. So in 21 days, it's July 5th, and it goes into phase 2. Somebody want to kind of recap what a wedding or a ceremony would look like at that point? Anybody?
Kate, you take this one. I've been taking all the rest of them.
To be honest, because I'm on my iPad, I don't have my stuff pulled up beside me, so I'm very confused by the difference between phases, stages, and colors. It's all just swimming around up here.
So, because I have 2 screens.
Thank you.
So in phase 2, we can have an indoor capacity of 15% for your ceremony, or you can have your ceremony outside with the same capacity limits that were in stage 1, which is the whole 2 meters away from everybody. All of that stuff. And then for a reception, you can have, under the gathering laws, you can have a maximum of 25 people outside or a maximum of 5 people inside. So essentially, you're allowed to have some sort of a reception inside, although it is only 5 people at stage 2.
And Rob, I just updated that chart and threw it in the chat because it didn't include the information that once we start the steps, the vendors are not included. So I just changed that, and that's what I just posted in the chat.
Okay.
Because this one says vendors are included in the numbers.
Right. And this is more from the government, this particular one. All right, fantastic. So now we're once again all good boys and girls. We've all got our vaccinations all across this great province of ours.
Wait, Rob, we have a good question in the chat.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
It's something that we have touched on in other chats, and it is, can we do time slot receptions which is, as far as we understand, that is a no-go, which in the color code system, it was a no-go. You are not allowed to have like multiple events with the same people. So how we kind of figured it was you can have 10 people, those 10 people all have to leave. The entire room needs to be flipped and sanitized, and then 10 new people come in. Now for a reception with time slots, bride and groom should stay the entire time. You technically can't. You have to leave with that first 10 people, and then another random 10 people would all come in and have a reception without you.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it was.
Which again is in terms of keeping people safe, it's obviously common sense that that's the way that it would happen, but different people and different services and different groups are interpreting things differently. I mean, we're burying my dad on Friday, and we're doing 5 different services with 10 of us going in and out of the graveyard. So I mean, you may find that you hear about things like that. I think in terms of safety, it's probably not the best option.
The best way to think about it is that, so say you and your significant other stay for every other group of 10. So say you have 6 groups of 10 and you stay throughout the whole thing, and say somebody in the second group of 10 wasn't feeling well, didn't say anything, didn't realize they weren't feeling well, and you now have touched them in some manner, either a hug or a kiss on the cheek or a handshake, what have you, and then you do that to other people in your other groups of 10, you are now contaminating every single group of 10 that you have after you've been contaminated. Is the best way to put it. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to get contaminated in any way. It's just that's the best way to analogize it. It's like, say someone puts purple paint on your hand and then you go and touch a whole bunch of other people. All of those other people have purple paint on them.
Oh, we really just have to look at the case of the funeral that happened where like, what was it, like 200 people are now or had to quarantine because they kept having groups of smaller groups of 10 coming through. And yeah, what I understand, like the health unit was like, yeah, that's definitely not allowed. So I'm gonna say that that's a consistent rule across all rites of all ceremonies and such.
Yeah, and I don't intend to suggest that you should try to find loopholes or that you should say, well, so-and-so's doing it this way. I'm just saying that not everyone is interpreting things the same way. And I know that it's not advisable, but I wasn't going to not go. So
yeah, what if everyone in the ceremony reception has had their vaccines? Feeling attacked by the government, the vaccinated people are still being told we are not allowed to have other vaccinated people over. So sorry for your loss as well.
We're all here.
So my mom works in the veterans program at St. Joe's Hospital. She has been fully vaccinated since the start of this year, and they're still swabbing and testing every single nurse, doctor, PSW, whoever comes into that hospital, and they are still testing positive, because even though you have the vaccine, that doesn't mean that you A, can't get sick, B, be asymptomatic and still have the virus and give it to other people, and C, again, give it to other people. So even though you are vaccinated, which we want everyone to be, because once everyone has their vaccine, we will get a herd immunity thing happening, we still need, like, you still will test positive and you still will give it to other people, and maybe not everyone at your venue or whoever's other staff are coming in have the vaccine, because at this point restaurant workers weren't allowed to get the vaccine up until a couple weeks ago. So even though everyone in your grouping might have it, not everyone that is around you might have it, if that makes any sense.
I have a friend who's a police officer in Peel region. He's had his first vaccine, was scheduled to get his second vaccine approximately 6 weeks after the first one. And he's currently recovering from COVID at home. He got it despite his first vaccine. So his wife and his family have had to distance from him, though they too have also had vaccinations. You can still spread it and pass it around. At this point, the issue isn't that you're not allowed to hang out with other people. The issue is that even if you hang out with other vaccinated people, when you leave, those 25 people will then be in contact with people who haven't had it. So you still run the risk of the same spread and then taking it out into the community and giving it to people who haven't been vaccinated, so are at risk of getting quite sick. So I really think that it's the herd immunity number that we'll get to before they start worrying about, or they start easing those restrictions. And apparently I have to turn a light on because it's getting dark in here. So
Yeah, I was going to say anecdotally as well. I know somebody who is just recovering also from COVID, who has had his first vaccination. His wife had her first, also got it. Their daughter, who had her first vaccination, also got it, as well as 2 more of their children. So yes, we're going in the right direction, but it's the herd immunity that is going to really get those numbers down and get us to where we can be together again.
And I know
sharing cooties, because I
we
miss cootie sharing.
I know we posted, one of the things that I posted the other day was the light at the end of the tunnel gets brighter every day. So always remember that, right? We're heading in the right direction, and we're getting closer and closer. I know it sucks, but we're getting there. We're definitely getting there.
In the chat, we kind of went past, Sydney had said, so I don't know if anyone else has run into this, but my venue has had someone make a complaint to the health unit about them hosting large weddings and not following restrictions. They haven't even started wedding season yet. That is something that I've heard about, and I know that it's happening. People are making preemptive complaints to scare venues into the rules. Most venues are following them because the risk of not following them is so much heavier for venues. If you get fined because you're having a wedding in your backyard, you don't have another wedding planned in your backyard next weekend. As a venue, you are closed for 2 weeks potentially. Yeah. So
sorry, Kate, maybe we can let Steve and Nikki from Nature's Oasis just pipe in here, because I mean they have a private venue. It's theirs. It's their livelihood, and it's outdoors, so they have a limited number of limited inventory. So tell us. I think you've said this before, Steve and Nikki, but just tell us your viewpoint. Oh, they're on mute.
I don't think their mic's working.
Yeah, I can see it moving, but
we can hear you.
Yeah.
But
there we go. You're back.
Oh, there you got us. We're back. We're having some technical issues. Yeah. So as the venues go, we have weddings.
Yeah, I will just kind of fill in for Steve, because essentially, again, family business, and if they are fined and out of business, they lose not only that, they lose 2 weeks, the 2 following weeks. So that's not good, especially if you're an outdoor venue and you've got that limited number of days. So hopefully I said that right, Steve and Nikki. Okay, so we kind of want to keep this to close to an hour. So we're moving into phase 3. Again, all been really good and got our vaccinations and everything's kind of tickety-boo. I'll pull up this. So we're here. So 70 to 80% adults 1 dose, 25% fully vaccinated. So now what happens? Here's kind of where the vagueness kicks in, because they really haven't answered these questions. We can guesstimate what they're going to say, but kind of if we could just kind of let's see what a wedding looks like after July 26th. Crew?
We don't know though. We can't say anything because it's literally the vaguest information they've ever given us. We think these numbers are vague. That's even more vague because it's just larger indoor and outdoor gatherings are allowed and larger indoor ceremonies are allowed. That's
Like
all
they
they've given us.
literally could have just written better in that column.
Yes,
And
will be better.
better
More.
than stage 2.
Yeah, no crystal
My
ball.
crystal ball's in the shop. It's been cracked since last March. Just I don't have the money right now to get it fixed, so unfortunately it's not coming back until much later.
I have a bunch of mirror balls here at the shop, but they ain't working. All
Well,
right,
it wouldn't be an essential service to have the crystal ball fixed, right?
It's not currently, unfortunately. They've been out of business as much as we have been.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not getting fixed.
And I really think that we'd much rather have our magic wands repaired before our crystal.
Oh yeah. I'll take the fix the problem over the see it how it plays out.
Yeah.
There is a question here that, and somebody's answered in the chat, but some other people might be interested as well. So I'm step 2, my ceremony and reception are both outside. Can I have the number of people to safely distance at my ceremony, say 35, then send a bunch home and only have the 25 at my reception?
Yes. Yep.
See, we should
As long as everyone's safely distanced at your ceremony.
And you're not allowed to have a receiving line at your ceremony.
And that's kind of the biggest thing is that's why you can do this is because you won't be, you're essentially coming in, watching and leaving. That's just how the ceremonies are working right now.
And have a plan in place for who's going to do that piece, because that's how we were operating last summer. And it was an easier said than done moment. It's highly emotive. And to disentangle families, some who've traveled great lengths and haven't seen one another, it operates as a family reunion. That's what gatherings are. And all of a sudden, people are like trying to leave the property or being uninvited from the property. That was a pretty intense period of time that was not as neat and clean as you'd like. And it took a long time. If a bylaw officer stepped on at that kind of 2 hours of disentangling parting, there'd be a problem.
yeah, and I'll go on the limb here. If I did have a crystal ball, if one of my mirror balls was semi-working like a crystal ball, I might say that phase 3 may be 100 outside, 50 inside.
It might go back to color code numbers.
It might be to where we were last summer, right? That would be where I think my mirror crystal ball that what might be seen.
I also just wanted to add about the what you were saying about it's hard to make people leave. Make sure as well if you are doing it at a venue like privately or whatever, that if you have a tent that is meant to be just for those 25 people, yeah, like I don't know. I did a wedding last year that it poured raining for their ceremony, and obviously like people had umbrellas, but everyone, like the whole 50 people tried to pour into the tent that's meant for 25, and it was a mess. So yeah,
I will concur. People forget social distancing when it's, it's like oh, cousin Eddie, right? So it's tough.
Okay,
And
is
most
it
of the-
that 100
Oh.
out? Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Erica, I was just going to add quickly that in fact, in the end, most of the folks that I work with decided, as difficult as it was, to only have the amount of people at reception that are at the ceremony as they'd be able to maintain at the reception, to also count for if they had to move indoors, that they wouldn't have to actually uninvite people to be there because the tents couldn't safely accommodate that many people at an outside ceremony anyway.
But yeah, that would be a good plan, because I don't know how you would do that. Like, do you get like an air horn or something? Be like, go home, bye. Like there's no polite way.
if you're under 25 outside, over 25 inside. Yeah.
Would you get a blue invite or a pink invite?
Are you
Stamps on
group
the
A or
hand.
group B? We do have a question. Is that 100 outside, 50 inside just for ceremony, as far as you can guess? I don't honestly remember what the rules were last time. I'm sure Kate or Jess or Amy.
It was reception.
Reception.
That's what I was talking about.
But
Now-
again, we don't know if that's what we're going back to.
That's complete guesstimation.
That was Rob's crystal mirror ball.
Yeah.
Blame that crystal mirror ball. All right, and circling back, as again, dancing. I'm certainly not sure. I don't think dancing we will see as of phase 3 what they allow. I suspect they're going to be pretty limited and limiting for the rest of this year. But as a DJ, I hate to hear that, but.
I think another thing, like Jess pointed out in our call yesterday, was I have some brides that are in October and like, oh, we don't fall in the phases. So it does state that the phases 3 goes to December 1st of 2021.
That's if the legislation is passed. So
Right.
there is, if you just Google Road to Reopening Ontario, it is the first thing that comes up in your Google search, and it's under the quick facts of this page. And it says, if passed by the legislature, powers under the Reopening Ontario, a flexible response to COVID-19 Act 2020 ROA will be extended to December 1st of 2021. To ensure public health measures currently in place will be extended and adjusted as necessary to deal with impacts of COVID-19 and support a gradual reopening of the province. There are currently 29 orders in effect under the ROA. Orders can be extended for up to 30 days at a time under the ROA, and the government must report all orders extension to a select committee on emergency management oversight.
Right. So
Okay.
we're not quite out of the woods yet.
Amy mentioned, because it's been all over the Swap and Sell pages, do we want to address hair and makeup, Erica? And I would be Erica. So I thought, yes, maybe we should. I don't want to be like super negative here, but basically no. Personal care, makeup and hair is like stage 3. Hair and makeup, eyes only. If you find an artist that's willing to do eyes only, maybe stage 2. Hair can be stage 2 most likely. Again, they've kind of been pretty vague about exactly what is involved, but they've stated that masks must be worn. So no full makeup for stage 2, and probably hair will be allowed. Before that, no, nothing. Zippo, zero, zilch, not happening. But I will be talking to Amy on Sunday about how to do your own makeup for your wedding on her, I can't remember you do like the Sunday show and
Facebook group, Wedding Planning Simplified. We'll be
Yes.
live in there on Sunday, teaching you how to do your own makeup.
Yeah.
And I do encourage all of you out there in YouTube land to definitely support all these lovely vendors, whether it be on Instagram or Amy's YouTube channel or whatever it is. We would love the support. All right, we're gonna anybody, as far as the vendors, have any things that we maybe haven't not mentioned, and certainly any last minute questions that we'd like to kind of answer. So I'm opening it up.
I think we missed one about transportation.
I was just about to mention that, which I had answered saying that we have not seen anything as of yet, which there's nothing in this that they've told us, but if anyone heard any different.
I can jump in sort of on this one. Transportation is considered an essential service when it comes to limousines, other shuttle services, just in general right now. So it will be permitted for your wedding. I would anticipate that the rule would be families only. Whatever their household is would be who's allowed in the vehicle at any given time. Typically the driver, the shuttle operator, if you're hiring a professional company, will have a screen up anyway, preventing any cross contamination, for lack of a better way of phrasing it. So yes, transportation is available. And I do know a number of limo companies that are still up and running, and it's the perfect time to get a giant vehicle with plenty of space for everybody.
So what I had been told, I think it was before the new lockdown, I can't remember now. I was told by my limo company that they had to follow basically the gathering rules. So at the time that I had called them and asked, they told me I was not allowed more than 10 people in a vehicle. is what I understood.
Whatever the limits are, yes. That's why I said it's likely going to be confined to households. Like you can't turn a 35-person party limo bus into a 35-person wedding when the gathering limits are 10. Like that's what you heard as well, right, Riley?
Yeah, that's what I understood. Like, and I had just explained that there was like 8 of us in our wedding party, like including myself and my fiance. And she was like, yeah, you guys fall under the 10 people, so it's good to go.
Perfect. Yes.
Yeah.
I addressed the question as if it was transporting guests from the reception, in which case it would be households or whatever your bubble happens to be. But for your wedding party, I would assume that that's just whatever the gathering limits are.
Right. Yeah. And you being on here, fantastic. Congratulations for trying to get informed. But certainly if you're out there in the wedding swapper land and you see somebody posting something that you go, what are you on? That's not, question it, right?
Half of the shit that people are posting in those groups, they don't listen to them, please.
Yeah. And just as couples, question, are you sure about this? Just again, so that the person like 5 down the thread from you can go, okay, well, somebody was questioning this, so maybe it is a little bit bogus.
Yeah, because honestly, some of us read them and like our minds just are like what? Because like, yeah, we've read it and we've talked about it so much and we're just like, where are they getting this from? Yeah.
Or even bring it to our attention and we'll address it. We may know some people in power at those swapper sites. So we're coming up to just over an hour, which is about what we had planned, which is great. Hopefully we've answered all of your questions. And again, we knew coming into this that we didn't have all the answers, and the answers certainly, there was no clarity. And what we are here for is to answer as best we possibly can, but really what we're here for is support. To understand we are here for you and you are not alone in this. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it does get brighter every single day. And we're going to be out of this sooner rather than later. So this recording will be on the Music Central YouTube channel. I will link that as of tomorrow on all the various wedding of the wedding couple support group, which if you're not on Facebook, I think there was a link earlier on to that group. By all means, I encourage you to get on there. And if
Rob,
yes.
Jody just made a great comment. Inquire about your licenses. Some locations aren't issuing, so don't leave it to the last minute to sort one out. Most places are appointment only at this point. So don't leave that.
And to
totally thank you.
Sorry, go ahead, Jody.
I just wanted to say also, this gets more complicated if you need to secure original identification from a previous marriage. If there's divorce papers, everything is taking longer. So just make sure you have the right ID that's going to be required and you secure that paperwork. Do not leave it as you're being distracted by, for very real reasons, the reception and the decor and makeup and hair. You need a license or you can't have a wedding.
The only other thing that I was going to add is that you want to go with your license application completely filled out and ready to go for your appointment. You don't want to show up and then start filling out paperwork there. Your appointment is to hand everything in and get it done. There's all kinds of places. The Ontario website, the Wedding Ring has a link as well for your license. Just download it, print it off, fill it out, or fill it out and print it off so that you've got it ahead of time.
Perfect.
That's a good question. I don't. Do you have to get the license in the town?
No, any license in the province of it's anywhere issued in the province of Ontario is good for anywhere in Ontario. If you change locations and change your date, do not worry. It will be up to the person who officiates the wedding to input the correct information and take it off your hands from there, because there has been so many contingency.
And also for fun, prices vary depending on where you're going. I have a really great article on the Wedding Ring that I'm going to stick in the chat for us right now in case anybody's interested. It just kind of shows you what the prices are, and there's a link right there to download your application.
Yeah, and then having said that, if you are in the chat, you can actually save this to your computer, laptop, whichever. Open the chat and you'll see that there's like a 3-dot box. You can press that, and then there's a little thing called save chat, and it will save it onto your laptop or wherever you have this broadcast.
So there's a question here in the chat box. Is there an announcement being made tomorrow from the Ministry of Health? I don't know where the heck this came from, but I believed it. So many vendors that I follow on Instagram believed it. We all thought it was true. And then I think it was you just squashed it. It's not true. I don't know where we got it from.
So Riley, we all heard this as well last week, and we have tapped every source that we can possibly think of. We've got people in the provincial government, we've got people on local government, we've emailed MPPs, Rob was on the phone with CFIB. We have done everything we can to source this rumor, and nobody knows anything about it except for the random person on Instagram who started it.
Yeah.
It was a lot of like, what announcement? Like, that's what a lot of us were getting of like, no, what are you hearing?
And to go one step further, my understanding was last week when Doug Ford joined Christine Elliott for that announcement, they didn't know they were going to make an announcement until a couple of hours before that. They were not prepared. Everything is so sort of vague. They weren't ready for it yet. They just kind of felt they had to give us something.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, there's going to be an announcement regarding schools opening or still online. That is what my fiance said, how he is a teacher. I have heard that rumor also, that there might be an update on schools.
Yeah.
But again, rumor,
Yeah, we get advance notice of all the Ontario announcement, at least I do. So I'm aware 2 or 3 days ahead of time when there's going to be an announcement, as is the CFIB. So again, we went down the rabbit hole in this one to make sure that this rumor thing wasn't true, because I was thinking, why are we doing this whole call when it might change all in 24 hours? So I wanted to make sure if we were going to have this call tonight, that the information that we were giving you wasn't going to change. So yeah, so rumor, no rumor. It is rumor. Squash it. I squashed it, Riley. I squashed it. Okay.
That's okay. I was just a little hopeful for like maybe some clarification, maybe some good news.
We're all hoping.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, everybody wants some hopium for sure. Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks everybody. To every wedding couple that came in. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Hopefully this was helpful and justified your time spending with us. To my vendor friends, I love you guys. You're amazing, and appreciate you making this happen. Check out the post tomorrow, and the link to the YouTube channel will be there. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. We are.
Oh, Linda, yes, we will be doing another meeting.
Yes, we will be doing another meeting. We have not yet defined that, but anticipate possibly June 23rd, either the 23rd or the 30th. But amongst the vendors, we'll talk about it and find the best possible date for all of us. All right. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Night. Stay safe. Stay healthy.